Welcome in at Sports by the Book here at the South Point studio. Pleasure to be with you as always on a Football Friday alongside over 40 plus years experience in Nevada alone for each of these gentlemen. Chris Andrews, Sportsbook Director behind us here at the South Point, and then of course Vinny Magliulo, both Hall of Famers as well. Gentlemen, we're down to 4. We started with 32. We're down to 4 in the NFL.
I know. 3 more games. That's all we got. Yeah, it's
ouch.
Kind of sad, really. But, this is what we look forward to every year. So
great time.
That's, well, Chris, can we say for the third consecutive weekend, it's the best weekend of the year in football?
Hell yeah, of course. Look at that board. Are you kidding? You got the 4 best teams in the league playing. Tons of action on this one. So yeah.
The last 2 weeks, I loved that line. Like, hey, it's the best weekend of the year with Super Wild Card weekend. Then it was the best weekend. Be the best weekend of the year in 2 weeks from
2
now
weeks
as
from
well.
now, absolutely,
yeah, absolutely. When the winners of these 2 games converge on this city for the first time for a Super Bowl, which I just want to start there real quick before we get into these games, because Jimmy mentioned this a little bit yesterday when he popped in with us. Just the evolution of this city, and at least how it's perceived by the Shield, to now here in 2024 hosting a Super Bowl where 10 years ago that was unfathomable. 20 years ago is beyond unfathomable.
Oh yeah. There's some things though over the years that they have kept quiet. Like Bob Martin used to tell me, and Bob Martin's been gone for what, Vinny, 30 years, something like that?
Yeah.
He said he would get a call from the NFL office every week. Bob Martin was the Babe Ruth of bookmaking.
Right.
Who were the moves? Not who were the moves this week? And I think they were checking referees. That's what Bob always thought. He says, Bob was a brilliant man. And he thought he caught a couple of trends with some referees with the moves and results. And he thinks the NFL was following that too. So they may have said a bunch of things, but they didn't mean them. They never meant them. I think I saw Bob Costas one time. He said he was interviewing somebody. He said, if you had this little red button and you had to tell, at the time it was Pete Rozelle, all you have to do is press this red button and they'll never be betting on the NFL again. Would you press that button? And Rozelle was squirming. I got out of it somehow. There's no way he's pressing that button. I mean, we all know that.
We talk oftentimes. I say we, Chris, Jimmy, myself. We talk about our network, and guys and ladies that we've worked with in the industry for a long time, and there's nothing better than to have a good network in whatever your endeavor is in life. Well, I can tell you that security agencies, law enforcement, and including the NFL security division, had a great network with law enforcement officials who in our industry, because many of them were colleagues in a former life, whether it was a police department, the FBI, whatever the case may be, which is great. Well, I can tell you, I made presentations to the NFL security division before, any even talk of Las Vegas was taking place, and they wanted to, and they always did. To Chris's point, they always kept track. The NCAA always kept track. The NCAA had a system in place, particularly after the Arizona State basketball scandal back in 1994, 1995, to where they would monitor the betting line. I mean, and so we always encouraged that kind of dialogue to take place. They didn't really want to publicize it. Okay, fine. And we didn't really either, but it was done professionally, and it was quite an educational experience. And now here we are, not only with our own team in the Raiders, but now the biggest sporting event, single event in the world is just taking place here.
Yeah, I mean, this and the World Cup final, which that's basically the 2 biggest events
in the world.
At this point. Which, hey, the World Cup final will be in Arlington, Texas.
In
2 years. So,
is that right?
Yeah, I haven't announced it officially, but the reports have pretty much pointed it to Jerry Jones and company down there.
I could see that.
It's gonna be a fun week. It'll be a fun week. It'll be a fun week on property here as well. We'll be breaking that all down next week, previewing what's going on property here in a week of the Super Bowl, what's going on in town. We'll have all sorts of Super Bowl coverage the week of the game as well. So stay tuned for that. here at the South Point studio. All right, well, let's try to figure these two pieces out that will be here in 2 weeks to play for the Lombardi. Let's start on the AFC side. The Baltimore Ravens hosting the Kansas City Chiefs. Of course, we know Ravens dominant second half a week ago, beating up Houston, getting the Texans out of there. They actually, in the two matchups against the Texans, the Ravens did not allow an offensive touchdown. Only touchdown was that kick return, or that punt return, I should say, a week ago. Dominant second half. They look like the best team in the NFL. Kansas City, if you look at the box score, they were better against Buffalo. Watching that game felt like a coin flip. Ended up being a coin flip. Bass misses the kick. Kansas City gets the first down, and they advance to this game where they will be without all-world guard Joe Thuney, who was officially ruled out earlier today. And Chris, we're now 4 across the board here. You've been at 4 for about 2 days now.
Yeah, I went fairly quickly.
Yeah, and you're at 4 and 44.5 on the total. Ravens, of course, favorite.
Well, it was one of those deals. I did open at 3.5 because I was really impressed with the Ravens and Aaron Schatz, who was been on the other show that we had, and I respect him. You know, I mean, listen, people have different opinions and metrics that they use, but Aaron Schatz said, you know, really, if you look at the Kansas City game, you know, they were much better than Buffalo on their DVOA. But I watched that game, and I was way more impressed with the Ravens. And I'm worried about some injuries with Kansas City. And you mentioned the Ravens did not give up a touchdown, defensive touchdown last week. You know what else is unique about that? No turnovers. They didn't convert any turnovers. I mean, it was just solid defense. That's what they played. And I know there's a bit of a magic around Mahomes. I think if any other quarterback is under center for Kansas City, this is probably like a 7-point game. I really think it's 6.5, maybe 7. But you have to give Mahomes respect. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And listen, if he wins this game, would I be shocked? No, I would not. But I'm really impressed with the Ravens. I think their defense is terrific. I think you mentioned another injury for Kansas City. You know, they've had a few lately. I think the Ravens are relatively healthy, including Mark Andrews. I think that right now there's just a lot in the Ravens ballpark. But I will say one thing, and we'll get to it in the next game too. I think there's a lot of pressure on the Ravens, way more than on Kansas City.
Has this been a game that people have been more gravitating towards if they're betting Kansas City, not quite Super Bowl-like, but taking a stab on that money line price as opposed to taking the points, especially when it was at 3.5 earlier in the week?
No, but in the next game they're doing that. But I want to tell you, right now, as a matter of fact, we just took a pretty good whack on the Ravens money line. I was at $2. I was really kind of low because I was getting, Jeff, to your point, you're not completely wrong. I was getting some pretty decent play on the Kansas City money line, but some guy came in, 20 dime parlay, you know what I mean? And he got that good price. He got minus $2, which was, pretty good at that time. But we've moved up pretty good. We're up to open at $1.65. We're up to $2.15. So that'll tell you right there. There's been a lot of money on the favorite. And when I opened 3.5, but when I saw 4s popping up, I told my people, I said, if you see any 4s, as long as it's not crazy, go to 4 because I think that's the right and better number.
No question that the Ravens are the healthier team. Chrissy mentioned Andrews comes back. He's been actually practicing pretty much unrestricted, I think, for the last couple of weeks. I thought he might have played last week, but he didn't. We saw what happened to. Remember a couple of years ago when the Chiefs were in the Super Bowl against the Buccaneers, but they had at least two offensive linemen that were out.
That was both tackles, backups,
and the center, I think. And
Humphrey played in that game, but it was the one of the guards didn't play.
They had a cluster. They had a cluster. Yeah. Okay, but I don't think that there's the amount of depth with Kansas City as there is with the Ravens, and so Pacheco. I know he's listed as questionable. I think he's going to go. But look, they're the healthier team now. On the other side, the Chiefs' defense is really what's carried them when you think about it. I mean, it is about Mahomes. And I think to Chrissy's point, not only would they be closer to a touchdown dog without Mahomes, I don't think they're in a game without Mahomes.
Probably not, yeah.
So
that's a good point.
I think that, I think there'll be more support for the Ravens in this game in terms of the both favorites are starting to draw some attention. The Ravens more on the money line, as Chrissy mentioned, and we'll get to the fact that the Niners number moved earlier today already. So, but look, two really public teams going at it in this match too in the AFC game, and I think that's certainly people are familiar with them, and they're going to certainly show up and play. And again, we've seen I don't even think we've seen 10%, maybe not even 5%, somewhere between 5 and 10% of the betting action. I think tonight being Friday, it'll start to pick up as people start coming to town.
Well, I would also say too, you mentioned this and brought this up with Jimmy as well. It's 4 public teams this weekend.
The Lions have become a public team in the last couple of years.
Honestly, I think last year when they got on that win streak, that was when they crossed over to being a public team.
Yeah.
We saw it at the beginning of the year with the future book, especially in the division, and throughout this year, 4 public teams, and boy.
But let's remember, when we opened the future book a year ago at this time, the Ravens and the Lions were both the same at 30-1. I mean, that's not like a long shot.
It's still a nice price.
But it's a nice price. Well, you'd love to have a ticket now, wouldn't you?
Sure.
But the thing about it is I'm not going to say that the Lions are not they're not a Cinderella, but there's more. I think there's a little bit of they're a sentimental team. I think to a lot of folks. Not the professional bettors. There's nothing sentimental.
No.
Professional bettors. You know what's sentimental? The professional bettors cash.
Having the money in the pocket.
But it certainly adds to that. That element will add to the general public's participation. But for the most part, you've got 3 teams that have been traditional public teams, and in the last couple of years, the Lions have certainly been that. And again, remember we mentioned it yesterday. They were pretty good favorites to win the NFC North, and they certainly did.
Well, and again, the Ravens going into the year, it was just one of those where, because I thought the Bengals were undervalued. The market ended up being right in part because Burrow got hurt.
Well, yeah, sure.
But it's so interesting to see the evolution of this Ravens team throughout the year, where if the back-to-back wacky losses at the beginning of the year, to where they lost to Minshew at home and then lost that game to Pittsburgh, they had no business losing. And then really, since that loss to Pittsburgh, all right, so they lost to the Steelers the last week of the year. Who cares? They played their backups.
I know.
And they lost that coin flip game to Cleveland, which was a wild game when Cleveland was at, I would argue, their peak this year. They've been dominant. The Ravens have been this quiet, dominant team all the way through. And here we are. And I think you're right with what you said, where if it's, all right, maybe Joe Burrow, maybe Josh Allen, those would be the only 2 guys that you could put in place of Patrick Mahomes, and this number is not 7.
Yeah, that'd be the only 2.
Yeah.
But to your point about the questions about the Ravens was Jackson has not finished the last 2 seasons prior to this one healthy, and that certainly was my question.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, I had that. Now Burrow. I know he's had a couple injury issues over the years, but I mean we kind of thought Burrow, was certainly going to be the dominant quarterback in that division. And of course he wasn't, but because of the injury. But I think the Ravens, I mean, they have. Listen, everybody has blips.
Of course.
I mean, go back to Detroit, had some bad ones. The Niners got waxed. I mean, we can go through every one of these.
Yeah.
But I think that right now they're healthy.
Oh yeah.
And I think they're playing some great football.
Well, that was the other thing. During that little blip at the beginning, they weren't healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, that game against Indy, they were without 9 starters.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they still should have won that game.
They lost it right at the end, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's sometimes this happens. Sometimes it's just right in front of our face of the dominant team's right in front of our face, but we just missed it for a chunk of the year. Kind of feels that way with Baltimore. Yeah. And I'm not touching this solely for one reason. That's because number 15 is on the other side.
Yeah, I can understand that.
And
like, our good friend Dave Damashek said, the curse of supposed to.
Oh,
Who's supposed to win? The Ravens are supposed to win. Yeah, I want to talk about the total for a
Please,
second.
yeah.
Because we opened at 46. There may be some weather. I'm not sure.
A little bit of rain and 10 mile an hour winds.
Yeah, so we're down to 44.5. I'm not the greatest total guy. Matter of fact, that's a big weakness in my handicapping. But a couple things I looked up. Kansas City defensively has given up more than 20 points 4 times. The Ravens twice. So I know a lot of guys are expecting fireworks from two great quarterbacks. One's going to probably be the MVP. The other one's the MVP of the last decade, So, you were expecting some fireworks, but I think don't overlook these two defenses. And I got to tell you, Kansas City, if you look at their offensive numbers all year, not that great, but their defense has really kind of carried them all season. So I'm not saying I like the total one way or the other, but I certainly understand the move.
I can see the total coming. I totally agree with what Chris said, but the public they're going to root for points. I can tell you this: this is not public sentiment going from coming up to the counter and saying, "Give me under 46." So,
and I got to say, Vinny said we're going to do 90% of our business from here on in. He's probably pretty darn close.
With roughly 9,000 college basketball games on a Saturday, you're going to have a lot of tie-in folks.
So 150 games, I think,
150 tomorrow.
Yeah.
Legitimately flat 150.
Yeah. There you go.
Lunacy.
Yeah.
But hey,
so tune into Sports by the Book tomorrow morning.
I already sent the list to Sean, which was only a third of them, and it was like, oh my God, how are there so many games? Yes, 8:30 tomorrow. Remember, 90 minutes on the weekends.
Yeah, 90
minutes.
The other 25 games will be on Sunday.
No, not even. It's like 9 on Sunday. It's crazy.
You have Alex in with you tomorrow morning.
I do. Yes, thank goodness.
Yeah, no kidding.
Thank goodness. I want to bring up a few more things on this game before we shift course here. You guys have more props than usual up for these games as well, front and back on both games for the AFC and NFC sides here.
Yeah, we just I talked to my people, and I got to give them a lot of credit. So just try to get up as many as you feel you can get a solid number on. And they put together a pretty good package, I think. We don't do a lot of player props during the course of the season, but we got a bunch of them here for this game. And everybody has different props, and how anybody comes on this show, we tell them, feel free to mention you took a prop somewhere else. You don't have to just bet our stuff, But I think we got four alternate point spreads in each game, 2 alternate totals in each game. A bunch of player props, all kind of scores by half for the game. And Frankie will be very happy. I finally went to 10 on Detroit the first half.
Oh, wow.
10 under. I moved it strictly because Frank is such a
You moved it on his You bet it on his bet.
Yeah, well,
he went over 9.5.
He bet it over.
He did. Yeah.
I can't wait to tell Frank that's move that needle.
Props are there's several elements about props. First of all, obviously they continue to grow in their popularity, but I think Chris brings up an important point. Getting your staff involved with it, because they're it really gives a little bit of juice. People love to participate in the props. The staff loves it, and you can get involved because you can't think of everything yourself. So, I remember a year that I walked in right after the Super Bowl was determined. And I said, nobody's leaving today. To even go on lunch, and I called out for lunch and just said, I said, just what would you want to bet on in this game? And you know what, you just because they're fans too, and they like to play, and which is fine. The other thing is the props are really the ultimate shopping experience. We were talking off air about pros coming in, and they may steer clear of the Super Bowl, but they'll be involved considerably with props.
Oh, definitely.
And definitely shop because there's opportunities to, whether it's middle or you can put yourself in a nice position with the props. So, and again, for us, it helps. It creates more business. You definitely, if you have a position that you may have some exposure on, you can help get off it with props. So it's a great. It's one of the better things that's happened in part of the evolution of our business.
Well, and in about 10 days, or about a week, actually, not even 10 days, in a week, you'll have a giant manual.
Be a packet
against the wall there with all the Super Bowl props.
Well, I'll tell you what, we used to put them on pink paper just to distinguish. we can't get enough pink paper to do it anywhere. I finally thought, well, I guess we're going to go with white. I don't know. I mean, we can't get the pink.
You were still doing it in 2019. In the Super Bowl before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And Kansas City 49er. But I remember it being pink that year.
We're going to try to get the pink again. Don't count on it.
Okay.
It might be just on a white sheet.
You got any pink paper suppliers out there listening? Please get a hold of Chrissy.
Yeah.
But it's and I'm happy to see the amount of props even for this game again, where again you're like you said, Vinny.
And by the way, we have the futures for the Super Bowl. We have the exacta. Still have the exacta.
Projected game. Projected
of the ones that remain. What is the one that you would do the worst on, Chris? Probably just a chalky Baltimore, right?
No.
Lions.
Yeah.
Lions. Yeah.
So I mean, I'm going to be rooting for the Niners on Sunday. At this point in time, I would say 1 through 6 would be a thing of beauty, But because I'm in real good shape, really, with the futures. But I mean, the Lions, I'm in fine shape, but just not as good as the other 3 teams.
Right.
Lions over the Chiefs, 150-1 on the opening price of the exacta.
The pre-tournament exacta.
Yeah.
Pretty good price if you have it.
I think I got 20-1 on my sheet. I don't know if I've moved it since then. Because, I mean, these things are dynamic.
Of course.
Constantly moving all these things.
Yeah.
By the way, we have yes-nos on all 4 teams. And, we got the 4 possible matchups. If they don't play, you get your money back. So we got some play there, too. So
what do you have if chalk prevails this week? Is you have it at pick right now in Baltimore?
No, I opened at pick. I went to the Niners, won. Back to pick. Now Niners won.
Niners won.
Yeah.
Okay.
By the way, that's very fair because not anybody that has this, and again, it's not a criticism, that has the projected or the potential matchup, it's action. What I mean by that is if it doesn't happen, you don't necessarily get your money back. So check your house rules.
Yeah,
so South Point, that's very generous.
Ravens 4 against Kansas City. Before we take a quick break, do you think this gets through 4 by the time we kick, or no? Or is it more likely to come back the other way?
I'll tell you the truth. If they were kicking off like right now, I'd probably go back to 3.5 to get a whack on the favorite. So I don't know, but I mean they're taking the 4. But like I said, I've seen some sharp guys coming in playing the money line at this point. I don't know if that's going to translate to a point spread or not. It might. Jeff, sometimes you just don't know. Sometimes these things just turn around. And I get guys asking me, where do you think this number is going to go? If I knew where it was going to go, I'd go there now.
Oh, you would have already moved it then.
I would have moved it, yeah.
You don't know. Somebody comes up with a 6-figure bet or more and says, hey, I'm interested in this. If that happens, then you want to lay the 4. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, then you might go higher. So you never know.
This is the early game, noon Pacific, 3 o'clock local time in Baltimore, Maryland, for the Ravens and the Chiefs.
Opposite.
No, Ravens are early.
No, but you said
Did I go backwards?
Yeah.
It's the second time I've done that this week. 3 o'clock
noon local. 3 on the East Coast.
Yeah, three local in Baltimore.
Oh, in Baltimore. Okay, you said local. I'm thinking local in Vegas.
And noon local.
My
here in
mistake.
Vegas. Okay,
my mistake.
What time is it?
I have made that mistake.
Yeah, we don't fly in from the East Coast every day, Jeff.
No, we
in case
don't.
You didn't know.
No, we don't. No, well, we would have to get Jimmy on Mr. Gaughan's
I'll talk to Mr. Gaughan about that. Maybe we can arrange that.
Man, excited for this one. It's when it was all said and done, I do think we ended up with the 2 best teams in the AFC.
Oh, I think so.
I know Buffalo had the weird year where they were mediocre and then turned it on late. No, Miami for a chunk of the year could have been considered the best team in the AFC. Could have, not saying they were, but we ended up with the 2 best teams in the AFC. I don't know if we did in the NFC, but who knows? Maybe Detroit will prove me wrong on Sunday evening. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we get back, we'll look at the NFC game. We'll also ask these 2 fine gentlemen about some college hoops questions because it has been topsy-turvy, to say the very least, in college hoops to begin the first 2 months plus of the college hoop season. That's next. Sports by the Book, South Point Studio.
South Point is also proud to provide a variety of relaxing amenities for the guests who want to be pampered. Soak up the sun and let your stress melt away in our lagoon-style Paradise swimming pool. A relaxing getaway where you can bask in the desert sun and enjoy seasonal food and bar service poolside. And if you really want to escape, come to Spa Costa del Sur. From couple suites to a co-ed wet area, our spa caters to business and leisure travelers who want to unwind and elevate their senses. A visit to one of our spa's steam, sauna, or whirlpool treatment rooms will leave any guest feeling like they can take on the world. Our gaming amenities include over 60 table games and over 2,600 of the most popular slot and video poker machines. We have penny slots, including the popular Buffalo games, and real machines like Wheel of Fortune, Triple Sevens, and Megabucks. If you prefer video poker, try Deuces Wild, Double Double Bonus, or a variety of multi-denomination games. Or try your hand at one of the most popular casino table games in the world, Blackjack. Don't let the game intimidate you. Blackjack, also known as 21, is both easy and fun. And our dealers are always happy to assist. And the best part? Blackjack always pays 3 to 2. Next, check out the roulette tables. Roulette is one of the easiest casino games to learn, and so much fun to play. It's a favorite of both beginners and seasoned players. In addition to blackjack and roulette, our casino pit features over 60 popular table games like Baccarat, Pai Gow Poker, 3-Card Poker, Ultimate Texas Hold'em, and Mississippi Stud. So get out of your room and come join in the fun.
Welcome back in at Sports by the Book. Here at the South Point studio, I'm Jeff Parles. Alongside me, Chris Andrews, Sportsbook Director here at the South Point. Vinny Maliulo, Gone Gaming, South Point, A+ hair.
Thank you.
Vinny.
Thank
as
you.
always.
Appreciate
Dirty
it.
rats.
Yeah, sorry.
Don't
Chris.
rub it in. Chrissy's here.
Before we get back to the NFL side of things, I just want to ask you guys real quick because tomorrow is legitimately, we talked about, I said it earlier. It is 100. There are 150 college basketball games tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not a misclick on what I'm saying here. There are 7 today. By the way, there is one good game tonight. Wisconsin takes on Michigan State,
good game.
which is quite the good game. You guys have 3.5 with the Badgers laying it at home at Cole tonight. But on a day like tomorrow, where there's 150 games and it's all from the Power 5 down to the bottom conferences and the extra board, which you put those games up on the day on the morning of. Just how does a day like this go, especially with this going to be bleeding into Sunday with the 2 NFL games?
Well, I'll tell you, I got usually 2 people at a time working the numbers, say, and you guys worry about the hoops and the hockey. I'll take care of the football, and that's the only way you could do it, and. I'll be at my desk, and sometimes, don't you take a lunch break? No, not really. I eat lunch at my desk, on days like that. Because really, I tell them, you're going to have your hands full with the hoops. I'll take care of the football. Go from there.
You've got to dedicate staff to by sport when you have a situation like that, and then of course then there's the end game.
Yeah, now we got 2 people on in game.
So it's evolved to that point, Jeff. And so, look. Numbers will move very quickly because, again, let's remember this. Yes, you've got 150 games, but there are folks out there, and to their credit, and it's smart. It's difficult to track and keep track of all 355, close to 355 D1 college basketball teams. That's just on the men's side. Don't forget the women's side has gotten extremely popular as well. And great game last night, by the way, between LSU and South Carolina down in
South Carolina comes
down
from
in the
behind
Bayou
and beats LSU
Great.
in Baton Rouge.
Great game. But there are players out there. They'll follow a conference, and it's not necessarily one of the Power 6. And I always say Power 6 in basketball.
Big East.
It'll go back to Power 5 next year with the realignment, but you have to include the Big East. In college basketball as a top conference. So you're going to look at there are folks out there that'll look at the Northeast Conference or the the Sun Belt or the SWAC, the Southwest Athletic Conference, and look for opportunities there. So numbers, from our side of the counter, numbers have to move quickly and move in a bigger increment too. You'll see oftentimes the case. So you want the action, but it's very respected, particularly outside of the Power Six conferences.
It's funny, Vinny says that, and I've had people over the years, young handicappers, young bettors, ask me for advice. So the first thing I would tell you, try to find a smaller market to bet into.
Yeah.
Vinny mentioned, the Northeast Conference or, some of those. You could find things that, I know Richie Baccelleri, our good friends, following all those, but I'm not following those conferences that closely. Or maybe you bet, first quarter totals in the NFL. Something like that. Find a small market that you could specialize in, and you build your bankroll from there. And that's what I would give advice to young handicappers who want to get into this business and want to be serious about it. Listen, if you're not serious, you just want to entertain yourself, go bet the Big Ten. Yeah. Go bet the ACC. Bet the SEC. You'll have a lot of fun, and you might win a couple of bucks at the end of the year, or you might not. But if you want to be serious about it, I would start with the smallest market you feel you can get a handle on and go from there.
Oh, go look at the Big West, the Big Sky, the extra board conferences, the Southland, the Patriot League.
Look, that's exactly what Chris is talking about. Yeah,
plenty of places to go. And again, with that said, there are still spots in these power conferences that you can go, but those markets, as you've said, they're tight.
Absolutely,
more information on those teams makes those markets much tighter on the college hoops front. It's still funny looking at the schedule where they're, again, legitimately today, with the Wrighton game. How about a Wrighton game? You like that? 9 games today, including that Arkansas State Cajuns battle where the Cajuns are up 13 on the Red Wolves in the second half. Cajuns close 5-point favorites. Again, they're just, 150 games tomorrow.
Yeah, good stuff.
Whatever you want in college hoops.
Yeah.
In that one.
And let me tell you, you talk about, when we've been saying it for a long time, how wide open it is. Just look at in this last. Look at last night, where Arizona goes up to Oregon State and loses outright as a exactly.
Unbelievable.
So, and that's not the first time, by the way, with Arizona that happened this year. They did the same thing up at Washington State, right?
Well, they were. I think they were 10 in that game.
They were double digits. They were
double digits for sure.
They got bet up in that game too.
It's fascinating because this college basketball year, and I don't know if it's a transfer portal. I don't know if it's guys are just more experienced. I don't know if it's just both of that. I don't know if it's just hard to play on the road this year in college hoops. Any result is in play this year. It doesn't. In the past, it just felt like there were things that we could, all right, Oregon State's an 18.5-point underdog. Yeah. They're not going to be competitive.
They're not going to win this game.
And they not only won the game, they came back from double digits in the second half, took a 9-point lead, blew the 9-point lead in 90 seconds, and then won on a buzzer beater last night.
One thing I will tell you, Joe, you brought up a good point about being on the road. Being on the road, that weather impacts college basketball teams more than, say, pro teams. And I'll tell you what I mean. Say, Vinny, what the hell are you talking about? They play indoors. Thank you, Ann. It's a challenge to get to certain places. Oregon State is not necessarily easy. We saw what Kansas last week. Getting to Morgantown. You've got to fly there, and your flights are altered. Then you've got to get bus rides and things like. You're completely taken out of your rhythm. I mean, it's always the case when you're on the road, right? But coaches and coaching staffs build in provisions to deal with that. But even with the best laid plans, when weather impacts what happens, and so that's something that's something that some pretty sharp handicappers I know that they taught me a while back. Pay attention to where these games are, and not just who the team is playing, but how difficult it can be, particularly in the winter, to get to some of these venues. And again, I think that, listen, and credit Oregon State last night because, but we've seen this out of Arizona this year, and ever since that loss to Purdue, right? I mean, they've not been the same. They've really, I think, underachieved compared to very different than when they went down to Cameron and beat Duke down there. But I don't think Duke is as good as a lot of folks thought that they were going into the season. So pay attention to weather. Like I said,
really for Arizona, just since they absolutely annihilated Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Almost put 100 on them, beat them by 25.
And that was at home.
Yeah, but since that, like you said, they lost that neutral game. Was in Indy. It was a Purdue home game.
Yep.
Let's not lie to ourselves.
Right.
The game here, that double overtime game against FAU found a way to beat them.
Shot terrific that day.
And then, got drilled by Stanford, who isn't any good.
Yep.
Right.
Lose to Wazoo, lose to Oregon State, who's arguably the worst team in the Pac-12. A lot of talent. A lot of talent.
Our good friend Jeff Fogel had an interesting stat about FAU in Arizona today. So I think FAU might be like 1-6 or something against the number since then, and Arizona even worse maybe.
FAU has been awful against the number because
Yes.
they're playing in a conference where they're big favorites every night. It's just hard to cover those numbers. And also, I don't remember if this was you, Chris, or you, Vinny. I forget which one of you two said this. Especially in these college basketball leagues where we used to say this about Gonzaga, and we still say this about Gonzaga, where they're getting every team's best shot every single night.
Yeah.
It's kind of happening with Florida Atlantic right now. In the
Well, sure, they're not a
American,
secret anymore.
Yeah, they're not a secret.
No.
That Final Four appearance was no fluke based off of what we've seen early in the year.
I'm going to give credit to my friend Chuck Edel, who I haven't talked to in a while, but it's really sharp handicapper. But he told me one of his angles that he looks at every year is teams that are great in the preseason before they start playing conference games, and sometimes that number gets overinflated. Now you're playing conference games that kind of know your system a little bit.
Yeah.
And, you're usually, you talk about a Gonzaga, you're usually getting some nice points, or FAU, of course. Now you're getting points and all this. So, Chuck, I hope I didn't blow anything for you, but, I think Chuck's an A1 handicapper. And by the way, a hell of a guy, too, a really good friend. I like him a lot.
Chrissy brings up an important point because along those lines, and we were talking about some of the smaller conferences, there are teams out there like a Texas Southern. Before conference play begins, they go play anybody. They go play all the big schools. Okay, they go up to Oregon. They'll play anybody, and on the road because nobody's going to go to their place. And they do it to find out where they are and how they stack up against the Power 6 conferences, and really better prepares them for their own conference play. So it certainly pay attention to those teams too, because you say, oh my gosh, this team is 1-7 going into conference play. Well, when they get into conference play, those 8 games were against Power 6 schools. Boy, I'll tell you what, that's a big advantage. By the way, Florida Atlantic, don't forget, they have everybody coming back this year. So the transfer portal did not
they were one of
negatively impact them.
They were a team that was unscathed. Their biggest thing is they moved up in weight class and conference.
Sure.
They went from they went into the American.
Which good for them because it should make for better prep for the postseason this year as well. So anyway, lots of angles to pay attention to when it comes to college hoops.
Let's shift back to the NFC title game. Deebo Samuel, no
Practiced.
Injury designation. Now he is
right?
in. Yep.
Just
No wonder
sore.
we're at 7.5.
Yeah, he is
Seriously.
in. The whole market has joined you at 7.
Have they really?
Yep.
Really?
Yeah.
I always say, though, Jeff, I like to be first rather than last. I really do.
Yeah, there's one book in town that has a national brand that
They got a juiced 7 or 7?
No, they have a 7 flat actually.
Yeah, I know who
which
they are. Okay.
Yeah, a little surprised actually. Peyton and Eli might need to get on that. But 7.5, Chris, you moved there. You were the first one to move to 7.5 on this game, and the market's there with you now. Deebo Samuel's going to play. The weather is just perfect for the end of January.
Much to the chagrin of underbetters.
No, I mean, look, at 51, I will almost never bet totals early in the week because it's still a weather report. It can be wrong.
Yeah.
I bet 51 over. Just because it's
you
just
got a good number.
You moved it to 52, didn't you?
No, I wasn't Frank. I couldn't do that. But it was just one of those where the weather's perfect. The Niner defense has had its little bit of struggles over the last 6 weeks. Haven't really been the same since that Jacksonville game where they destroyed the Jags. And what's our critique of Jared Goff all the time? You can't play in cold weather.
Yeah.
65 degrees with no wind, that's ideal for a kid who's from that area of the country.
Yeah, I think both these quarterbacks, get some scrutiny.
Sure.
A lot of it deserved. Listen, you're in the NFL, you're a quarterback, you are going to get scrutinized. I hate to tell you. I mean, we're still scrutinizing Patrick Mahomes. And, we're going to try to get Scott Kazmar on our show at one point. And Scott will tell you, Brady's the most overrated quarterback that's ever lived. So That's interesting to get that. I can't wait to hear that. But he has numbers to back him up. Pretty interesting guy. I'm not that I agree with him. I really don't. But I'm not sure I want to debate him in a public forum either. But I think both these quarterbacks, I really think both will play well tomorrow. Again, I'm not a totals guy. With the weather the way it is, it would be hard for me to bet this one under.
A lot of Niner and over parlays.
I'm starting to that revelation.
Yeah, no kidding.
The thing about it is these two quarterbacks do get overshadowed by the other game. Look at the other two quarterbacks, right? I mean, so the thing about Goff, though, in terms of weather, and which is not going to be a factor this week, it's about pressure, and I think that's where he's going to. And I'm sure Dan Campbell and his staff are addressing that, right? Because the Niners like to bring pressure, but Niners defense has not. They've been prone to giving up points, right? So, and I think that also has contributed to play on the over as well. So, look, it's still a public team in terms of the Niners, a traditional public team in the Niners. You've got a public team over the last couple of years in the Lions, and of course a terrific story because they've never been to a Super Bowl, so there's that sentimentality element. So, but another good game. This number, Jeff, I know you're gonna. Where do we see it going? It'll be impacted obviously by any carryover from the first game. Let's remember, these two games have concentrated handle, right? So, every week as the playoffs move along, and the handle continues to grow. So that we there's a big difference between carryover on a Sunday night during the regular season on a primetime game. With everything going to it, this is a situation too where you mentioned those 150 college basketball games. There's going to be a few of those that are going live to these games.
What makes you say that?
On Sunday?
There's going to be. I can tell you right now. There will be plenty of, and I don't think this bet will win. Just throwing it out there. There are going to be plenty of Kansas Jayhawk money line as an underdog tomorrow against Iowa State.
Yeah.
With Kansas City Chief underdog money line on Sunday out there. Like you said, I mean,
I'm sweating already because I know that's coming.
Oh, it's definitely coming.
Yeah.
By the way, I like Iowa State in that game tomorrow, so hopefully you'll knock those out pretty quickly there, Chris.
Well, the other thing Vinny was talking about, the carryover. One thing to watch, usually the pattern, and again, I'm painting with a very broad brush here. If you're betting the NFL, betting parlays, it's usually dog, or favorite, over to the over, dog money line to the dog money line, or favorite money line. So that first game is going to have a lot of impact, one way or the other, on that second game. And we'll see how it goes. But that is the general pattern that you see over the course of years. The worst is over.
Oh well, again, that's what we call in the studio the Nicotero.
Oh,
the Nicotero effect.
The over.
Oh, Chrissy, 45 years from now, we'll be talking about the Nicotero effect.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah, really? We're going to go in some cryogenic chamber or something like 45 years from now?
What else would we do?
What else would we do? We're going to be like Ted Williams.
What else would we be doing?
Ted Williams and Walt Disney.
Yeah.
Both with the frozen heads. Just going back to a point that you said there, Chris, and you're 100% right. On just the scrutiny of even for the elite quarterbacks, everyone's going to get scrutiny. But for these guys in this game where, look, Jared Goff's already been in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
as wild as that may seem to some. But
put 3 points on the board.
Oh,
Ask our friend Zach White.
Yeah, no, I'm still. I know that was not a good result for you. It was not a good result for me.
No, it's funny. It was a great result for the game, but
not for
Zach,
that
our
exhibit. Yeah.
Oh, I love Zach. He's a great guy, and I tease him about it all the time. Beat me out of $100,000 on that prop. But like I said, Michael Gaughan loved it. He loved it. We got publicity all over the country. And we had a good day. Now, if we had lost and Zach beat me out of 100, it wouldn't have been so good. But we had a great day. Zach beat me out of 100,000. It's not like Zach took the money and ran, by the way. So he's still betting me all the time. God bless him. So, Zach, I hope you're listening. I do think he's a hell of a guy and a great respect. He's a sharp, sharp guy.
There's always a prop or two that Chris will say, hey, you're not going to believe this. How about the one with the when the 49ers and the Falcons game? I think it was when the game was sitting on
9.
Wasn't that the game?
Falcons Patriots.
Falcons Patriots.
What did I say? Yeah, Falcons Patriots.
Falcons Patriots.
Wasn't it on 11?
No, it was on 9 for a while, and that was going to be a big one.
And you start scoring some props early and everything like that, and all of a sudden, I think Nick or somebody said, hey, you may want to take a look at this.
Oh, yeah.
Total number of points in the game.
And not time on the game clock, but time on the real clock. Sat there at 9 for about 45 minutes.
Yeah. I mean,
that was not, even though they wound up, that's the year they came back from the 28-3 deficit.
Chris, you don't have to remind me and everyone else. I had Atlanta plus the points that day.
Wow.
It still stings.
Too soon.
That was one of those where I did not need that to land 3. Tampa by 3.
Or New England by 3.
New England by 3.
It was a bad number for me.
Yeah.
And when Brady got the kickoff, I said, Tom,
whatever
you're up there, get in the end zone because I know he's going to go score.
Wow.
Is he going to score a field goal or a touchdown? Go get the touchdown. I'll lick my wounds the rest of the way. But 6 was okay.
Under the old rules, by the way.
Yeah, right.
Well, no, so that's the only Super Bowl that's ever gone to overtime. That game, the 28-3 game. That was the touchdown. If they didn't score the touchdown, they would give the ball back to Atlanta.
Right. Yeah.
Well, yes.
The new rules.
The new rules we still haven't seen in action yet in the postseason.
No.
We're never getting an overtime game again, apparently. In the playoffs.
Even if a team scores a touchdown, the other team
has a chance.
Yeah,
and that's a playoff specific overtime rule.
It's going to be fascinating the first time that comes into play. Who knows? Maybe it comes into play this week. Maybe it comes into play in 2 weeks. You never know. Just from a game strategy perspective, you want to defer.
I think so.
You want to defer in these new rules where you get the hammer, you get the ball second. Even if a team goes down, scores a touchdown on you, they kick that PAT. You can come down and say, we're going for 2. We're going to go in this thing right now. One thing the NFL didn't quite think through on that one, but that doesn't come much of a shock. But back to my point on the quarterbacks real quick. When we're dealing with guys who are perceived to be middle-tier quarterbacks, where I think both of these guys are somewhere from that 8 to 13 range.
Yeah, upper middle.
Yeah, upper middle. I think they're 8 to 13. They're really in what I would call the Kirk Cousins zone. More at least.
Okay.
Yeah, at least for what the past of people perceive Kirk Cousins to be.
I'd go on record saying I'd take either of these guys over Kirk Cousins.
Off Achilles injury right now, I think I would too.
Well, regardless.
Yeah. But my point goes for this, where the total's only going to go up because of what Vinny said. The public is going to come in on this game. But there's going to be national pundits after this game. If this game goes like 31-28, no one expected the shootout. That's coming, Chris.
I just can't wait to say the Niners upset the Lions by winning.
Well,
I don't think we'll get that this year. No, I don't.
I mean, we'll get tomorrow in college hoops. We'll get
Iowa State upset Kansas.
Iowa State upsets Kansas as a 4-point favorite.
No, it's not the case. It's not an upset.
I know that's that's coming.
Oh yeah, of course you see it all the time.
Just remember, pundits don't book the games.
No, I know that. I do have a question on Detroit though.
Go ahead.
Just with the way that this season has gone for them, where you have a franchise that this is their second NFC title game ever. They're one of the 4 teams that has never played in the Super Bowl. Just for a team that, and we talked about it earlier, they've become this public team. Is this just one of those where you have people that are coming in wanting to bet the narrative, bet the fun story here, just kind of blindly?
Sure. Absolutely, yeah. Where do we get to the Super Bowl if they win?
Well, if they're there, I know they're going to get bet blindly.
Yeah, they're going to. We're seeing that, sure. And almost everybody I talk to that doesn't have a financial interest or B isn't a Niner fan, they all are rooting for Detroit. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them.
Yeah.
Why not?
I agree. Chris is spot on with that. I mean, again, I'm not going to say that Detroit is Cinderella, but they're definitely the sentimental choice. Yeah.
And then, of course, as we know here in Vegas, Niners are one of the teams that people always come flying in and bet. I know it will be mostly a lot of red in here on Sunday afternoon.
Well, I got to tell you though, Detroit right now, I think they're coming into town too. Won't be more than Niner fans, but I think a lot of Detroit people are going to show up in town for this one.
Well, it'll be again for the Super Bowl. Again, 2 weeks from now. We talked about this last week. It doesn't matter who wins the NFC Championship at this point with these two teams. Those ticket prices are spiking regardless because it's either going to be Niner fans who, when they came and played the Raiders last year, was it 80-20 Niner fans in that game?
Well, I spent a lot of time in Northern Nevada, which means I went to San Francisco, Northern California quite a bit. A lot of money out there.
Oh,
a lot of money. Yes,
very much so. And then for the Lions, I mean, if it's your first Super Bowl appearance in franchise history, it's gonna spike those ticket prices.
There's always a response to the Super Bowl in Las Vegas. I mean, Las Vegas typically outdraws the host city, and it's about the experience. I mean, let's face it. And so this year it's got to exceed that, I would think. Especially, first of all, look at the inventory.
You mentioned that on Twitter.
Yeah, that was a great tweet.
I think a lot of people agree with me. How many people are going to come for the Super Bowl? About the same that come every year, whether it's here or elsewhere. And listen, I guess, and I'm a little curmudgeonly on those things. I guess it is good for the town that we are in the rotation. I think we will be from now on. In some ways, it's good for the town, but I think the short term effect is not all that great because it is going to raise prices, and this town's going to be. Well, it's always nuts every year with the Super Bowl.
Look, the Super Bowl, and you mentioned it, like it's always crazy in this town.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if the game was in London, it would still be crazy in this town.
Yeah.
And it's just curious, and you're right. This assuming that nothing like the NBA All-Star game when I was here, nothing like that happens.
No, I don't think so.
This week, which I think it's pretty safe bet nothing like that would happen. This is going to be in a rotation. This is going to be city. Yeah. It's going to be the three West Coast cities here, Phoenix and LA, along with the two Floridian cities of Miami and Tampa and New Orleans. Those are going to be basically
probably Dallas too.
Yeah, Dallas still hasn't had it since that one with Green Bay.
They're saving it for when they go.
Well, everyone's still blaming the weather that week where it was all that iced over. You also don't want to see Dallas. Pittsburgh lost that Super Bowl, of course.
There's a lot of things I don't want to see in life. I can't help. But I will say this: the Final Four here is going to be that I'm in favor.
Final Four,
27, right?
Something like that. But
you get
the Final Four, for us, is always like a little disappointing. It's never as big. It's the first 4 days that are big.
Oh yeah,
and the Final Four is a good event, especially the championship game on Monday night. I mean, it's good. It's not bad. We've had some really good results.
Yeah.
Some couple not so good ones, but mostly good results. But it's not as big as the first 4 days. And I think having the Final Four here, I think that'll be a great boon for this town.
You get the Super Bowl.
2028.
You get a Super Bowl. You're because Final Fours are now in Super Bowl style venues, obviously. So
look, and the college football national championship was supposed to be here in 2 years, and they moved out to Atlanta for whatever reason. Still don't know why that.
I don't know
why that moved out.
We'll get it. We'll get it.
I'm not too worried about it. But again, as we open the show with, it just is amazing how different things are today in 2024, as opposed to, forget 20 years ago, 10 years ago, and quite honestly, 7 years ago before the Golden Knights played their first game.
Yeah.
And now, and really, I really do have to imagine that the initial success of the Knights kind of paved the way for everyone of like, hey, we're good. It was never really taboo to begin with, but it's clearly not taboo.
Right. They knew it. They just didn't want to admit it.
Of course. All right. Well, when this is all said and done, Chris, just going through some other things. The second game will end at about 6:45 here in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
When will the first official line be out like moments after that game?
As soon as we can
And-
get it loaded in the computer.
As soon as you get loaded in the computer.
Yeah, we're victims of we're slaves to technology. As soon as we can get that thing in the computer, it'll be up.
And then, as you said, it's really a few-day process for getting all the props out,
Yeah,
bits and pieces throughout the week. You get the coin toss and those other fun
coin
ones.
toss, the
beginning of the
safety,
week.
that kind of stuff will be on Monday. And I still say, who would bet the coin toss? But
A lot of
okay.
people.
Sean's gonna
Actually,
bet the coin
a
toss.
lot of people.
You got to bet it here.
Sean, why don't you and me
Reduce
just do
vig.
it?
There we go. And then, of course, is there anything new that you guys might try this year, prop wise? Do you think?
I don't think so. We've
Okay.
really got it. We're settled in. The last couple of years, we have a pretty good map. You know, I've saved for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years the menu, so we kind of got it down pat. And and Michael Gaughan likes about 300 props. He thinks it's plenty. So I don't see a strain. But of course, we always have like the Saturday before the game. We get some cross sport parlays,
Of course.
which the media loves
Oh, they do.
and nobody bets.
It's true.
Nobody bets them.
Oh,
Very-
you get
very
$100.
$100
here.
Very
here,
little.
250 here.
Now, if I make a mistake, they'll beat down the doors to get in there, but I try not to do that.
I think it depends on, the matchup, Jeff, if there's something, to tie it into. The thing about props, too, is, listen, you can make a million props, but you want to make them as easy to determine as well. Make them clear,
Yeah.
make them understandable, make them, to where you can you grade them immediately once the NFL puts that box score out. You can't put out something so complicated that it's, you need an attorney to interpret it and break it down for you. So,
And there's always those wannabe attorneys out there.
Oh God, yeah.
Every year.
Yeah.
And the one I finally had, I can't do it anymore. They had, how many lead changes or will there be a change of lead after 0, and I got in so many beefs with that. Guys were saying, well, it was tied when it was 20-20 and then they kicked the extra point, made it 21-20. So that doesn't count. I can't even remember what the argument was.
Crazy.
Finally, I just bought the guy dinner. I says, I can't pay you, but I'll buy a dinner at the steakhouse. That's the best I could do. Probably ran up the tab on me too.
Oh, I'm sure he did.
He's still in there.
Yeah, still in there 2 years later. Again, regardless of the matchup, it's the energy's always there for
Oh,
the
yeah.
Super Bowl.
Great.
It doesn't matter. But as I said before, I truly feel that we got the two best teams in the AFC. The NFC, it very well may have been being the two best teams, but it's definitely the most. I know, as you said, Dallas is the kings of June.
Every June.
But I think we at least ended up with the two most intriguing teams in the NFC.
Yeah.
Getting to this point, one way.
Yeah, I would have said Philly if you'd asked me 2 months ago, but
Well, then
went
they
on
turned into the Carolina Panthers.
they would have liked to have been the Panthers. No, and I think KC is got a great national following, but I do think that Baltimore is clearly the better team.
Yep.
And I think Baltimore against either one of the teams in the NFC will still be a great matchup. KC might be a little bit, but we're a very fine line would be the difference.
Both home fields, but are strong. I think Baltimore's stronger than San Francisco.
Agreed.
But I also think the kind of what brings San Francisco back and or up, I should say, and Baltimore back a little bit is I think Kansas City proved what it was like to go into a hostile environment last week. We haven't seen that out of the Lions yet. So, home field probably more of a factor in the second game, I think. Although Baltimore's home field, I've rated now tops in the NFL.
Well, and
I would say, excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I would say the other thing to make a case for the Dogs is I think they're both playing loose and free. I mean,
House money.
house
little
money
bit.
with both those teams. Absolutely.
well, and you mentioned it at the top of the show. There's a ton of pressure on Baltimore. There's
Mhm.
a ton of pressure on San Francisco.
Mhm.
For Kansas City,
Nah.
this cares? This is
And they're the defending champs.
this is defending.
How's that?
Yeah, we're here every
What do you
year.
call it?
with the-
This is the worst team we've had since Patrick Mahomes has taken over.
Yeah, we lost all
We
our
weren't
receivers.
supposed to be in
The worst
last year.
offense. This
Yeah.
is their best defense, I think,
That's true.
since he's been
well,
there.
you know what? And I don't like to invoke the New England run because it's just one of a kind. But if this Kansas City team wins the Super Bowl, it's kind of a frightening sight for everybody.
Yeah.
If this team that their offense was for a good chunk of the year middle tier at best,
Yeah.
that's a little frightening for everyone. And for the Lions, hey, the Detroit Lions, they're not supposed to be playing in late January. That's just what the franchise is. But it'll be a lot of fun. Vinny, we'll hear from you on Sunday morning and tomorrow morning as well, just on how these games have gotten bet over.
When do we have Lou Finicaro on?
We have Lou actually on Monday now.
Oh, Monday.
Lou
That's
will-
right. That's
Lou
right.
will be on Monday with
That's
Alex White and Matt Neverett,
Oh, okay.
and he will be here previewing the big game
Yeah. Okay.
along with some hockey.
Glad to have Lou on the roster.
Absolutely. Hey, look, not many people sharper than our
I
guy,
love
Lou
Lou.
Finicaro.
Love Lou.
We will check in with Matt Hamilton on Sunday to preview the games. Of course, Matt used to be of NFL Networks, now Up and Adams producer as well. Former staff member of the Detroit Lions back
Oh, is
in the
that
day
right?
as well.
Oh.
So we'll get his thoughts on the NFC and AFC championship game on Sunday.
And you and Alex and Frank are credentialed, right?
We will have
for the game.
content through the week.
Good.
We'll have content.
Radio Row?
We'll have content through the week. Vinny.
All right, buddy.
Don't want to give away too much.
All right.
Jimmy's calling me back there. He's
Jimmy's
got
calling
people
you
he
back.
wants to.
I think we have fans
we
behind
have
us.
fans Jimmy wants to
Oh,
introduce me to.
Jimmy's has the most fans of all of us.
Not even close.
Not even close.
Yeah.
Not even close.
He's calling for help.
It's like traveling with McCartney when you're with Jimmy.
Chris Vinny, pleasure as always. We'll see you guys again next Friday. We'll know the matchup next Friday. Good luck in all your plays for today that you may have it. Alex and I are back tomorrow. 150, not all of them, but a lot of them previewed tomorrow for College Hoops on Sports by the Book here at the South Point Studio.